Manufacturers in Nigeria's textile industry are under strain as the cost of energy has almost doubled over the last month as a result of the naira devaluation. Now, some manufacturers have reportedly spent about 21 million naira in 1 month, up some 90% from 11 million naira on gas, which is a vital source of power for their operations. Now, this presents dire consequences for the struggling industry, which remains in the doldrums as textile imports have doubled in 2 years, amid a lack of implementation of the interventions of previous administrations. And the recent face-off between Nigeria and the Niger Republic has also exposed the smuggling of textile products through Nigeria's land borders. There are trucks loaded with mostly inferior quality material stuck in border states in northern Nigeria. The influx of these materials has led to the collapse of an estimated 150 textile companies in the last 40 years. Joining me now is the Director General of the Nigerian Textile Employers Association, Mr. Hamma Kwajaffa. Mr. Kwajaffa, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
So let's start with this. In terms of Nigeria's textile industry, which was once bustling, booming, and very prosperous, when we talk about it now, that's obviously no longer the case, because when we speak to industry insiders, it's a description of a doom and gloom situation. And to hear many describe it, the industry is literally right now on the verge of collapse. So just how bad are things for Nigerian textile manufacturers right now?
Yeah, thank you very much for this invitation. Actually, the textile industries become less competitive due to our poor infrastructure and unnecessary smuggling. And we are being asked to use backward integration. That is, ensure that we use cotton as our raw materials. What is happening now is that most of the textiles that come from China and India use polyester. Polyester is unfortunately part of crude oil, but we don't refine in Nigeria, so we don't have that polyester part of the crude oil. So, and when we import, it's very high. So the problem largely now that has happened is because of the gas that is benchmark on dollar. So even if it's sold in naira, it's benchmarked on naira. And the problem is that now we cannot meet up because the naira floating is definitely gone up. So most countries have what is called textile parks or textile hubs, whereby government defray some of the costs to ensure that we're in competition. Because what's happening now, for instance, in Africa even, the electricity we have, like it's been mentioned, it's only 13,000 megawatts, and we don't have generation power. The generation is not good enough. South Africa has about 50,000 megawatts. Ethiopia has about 30,000 megawatts of electricity. They don't see laptops. So because of the naira change now, the dollar is up to 800 naira. So it has almost tripled and getting up to 90% of our cost in that aspect. So normally, you know, the companies do not budget. They do their budget, and they found out that after budgeting, some costs just rise like that. And it's not budgeted for. So when it's not budgeted for, then what do you do? The plan has totally collapsed. You have other things to do with, you have to pay workers, you have to pay this. The smugglers don't have workers. They just smuggle without paying any other costs. And like you've seen what's happening recently, what the Niger border, see how many trucks are lined up coming to Nigerian market. That's just daily. So that's why textile cannot survive, because we are not competitive, and they can sell their 5 yards of clothes at 1,000, whereby no company can do that.
Okay, so
the infrastructure decay is a key problem. And as long as that is not found out and finalized, then it will be a problem, because the subsidy actually is supposed to go to industry so that they can employ people.
So
I've heard of recently
I
Yes.
want us to
Yeah.
expand the conversation now because the cost of energy has been one of the biggest issues, and that seems to have risen 90% in just the past few weeks, in just a month. And that unbearable pressure on manufacturers is going to tell massively on the industry. So the Tinubu administration says there's no going back on its policies, which of course has included the floating of the naira, or what some people are also calling the devaluation of the naira. But beyond the cost of the energy, what other impacts has the naira situation had on the industry in particular?
We also import other spare parts. We import dye stuff. There are so many things we import. Our competitors, we even get our spare parts from them. So we are definitely not competitive. China, India, all producing all these things. We don't have the knowledge to do all this. So everything is imported from China or India. So, and they are competitors. So, and then when they export, their countries give them incentives. That's why they can come to Nigeria and sell 5 years of what I'm hearing, for instance, at a miserable 1,000. Because we pay workers, we pay other costs, we pay all these overheads. So you find out that we're not competitive. That's why we couldn't benefit from AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act of Obama in America, because of own costs, because we're not competitive. Ethiopia has taken over. When we had 160 textile mills, Ethiopia had only 2. Today now, because they are subsidized by the government, because they have textile, what is called textile park, and they ensure that they benchmark the electricity, for instance, with Europe. That's why they can sell. The suppliers can come from Europe and buy from Ethiopia at cheap, at exact rate, because they have the same tariff on electricity and any part of energy. So government has to ensure that this is what is done so that we can be competitive and be able to export. They've been encouraging non-oil export. But as long as we're not competitive with other countries, we'll always be behind. We'll not be able to sell.
At the end of the day.
Locally, domestically, and internationally, we have continued to lose out. Because nothing is being done on that aspect.
So when you mentioned
we are the second employer of labor after government. Largest employer of labor after government.
We'll get
so all
to
this
that
insecurity, it's lack of jobs.
In terms of the contribution of the industry, but I want to look at this electricity, gas, fuel conversation that's being had right now, because gas is just one of the alternatives. And for your industry right now, it's looking like it may not even be one of the cheaper alternatives, given the cost of gas as it is right now. So what are some of the major barriers that seem to be preventing manufacturers for textiles from adopting more sustainable and cost-effective energy sources for their operations? Because gas is not the only alternative. So what's stopping you from being able to explore other electricity or other energy alternatives for the industry?
You know, we are not small-scale industry. This is large-scale industry who are motivated to come and invest as FDI in Nigeria. Enabling environment is normally provided by the government. There must be enabling environment for this to survive. And therefore, government must put in more efforts to ensure that we have infrastructure on ground. Because even the pension funds, many countries are using pension funds because it's a long-term fund and used for infrastructure. So that companies, industries can grow and employ their people. As it is now, there's no employment in this country. Government cannot employ. So it's only private sector that can employ. So if they don't enable the private sector, there's definitely no way they can employ Nigeria. So see what has happened now, because in the past, textiles were able to employ, and now no employment. So people have gone into other ways to find money, find a livelihood, going to terrorism, going to banditry, going to so many things, insecurity. Because they are idle, and idle minds is devil workshop. When they remain there, they graduate, they still go back to their house. It will be difficult for them to survive. So these are most of the key things. The sustainability will only come if we are able to compete with other countries and be able to export. That's a non-oil export. Because oil, it's seen that we cannot continue, we cannot export oil and make profit. So the industries have been dormant. If it's, for instance, the refineries are working, we could get the byproduct of polyester and also combine with cotton and be able to sell at cheaper rate.
Okay.
But all these things are the factors causing this problem. And you find this discourse, you go to Kano, prices are different. Tariff of electricity is 42 in Lagos. You go to Kano, it's 72. Kaduna 70. So, and it's in the same country. And you want them to compete with each other. It's not possible for them to compete. Their price definitely will be higher in Kano because of the high cost of it.
All right, Mr. Kwajaffa, I believe you're muted. Please check your audio so that we can hear you. Mr. Kwajaffa, are you with me?
To make us competitive,
Okay.
it will be difficult to.
All right. So I need to come in here because you, of course, mentioned the long lines. I had mentioned it earlier in the intro, and that's a bit of something you made mention of in one of your answers. The fact that there is also a very lucrative and substantial smuggling operation that brings in inferior or whether same quality textiles into Nigeria. But at the end of the day, it's being smuggled into the country. The country loses out on taxes and whatever it may be. And it's also coming into the market, and it's a problem for this market as well. Mr. Kwajaffa, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Kwajaffa, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Fantastic. So let's talk a bit about the smuggling that seems to be going on through some of Nigeria's northern border states. Kano, Katsina, Kaduna markets seem to be full of
all imports are supposed to come through the ports so that they have proper check. But as long as they're coming through the borders, it will be difficult for customs to have a proper check on those goods coming in. So to my surprise, when we saw this long trail of trucks coming from Niger, Niger has no textile company. So they're just being used as a conduit. So they come easily through either Algeria or wherever and come and dump their goods. Look at the long trail of trailers on the borders, and they're all containers of textile products. They have come to fill up our markets, and they use polyester, which is not good for the skin. And when it washes away, they look at, because they check on our designs and go there to produce in mass level. So when they bring it, it washes away in 3 days, and they blame the textile manufacturers, which is not our product. That's why we are even imploring government to implement the Executive Order 003 that says all goods must be bought locally. So clothing also, they should be bought from textile manufacturers. But that order has not been implemented. This is our key problem. Most of the policies of government are not implemented. So once they are implemented, we feel that we can now break even and be able to employ more people. But all these chances are not there. This has been our dilemma ever since. And you see, Ethiopia government, they have their textile park, and they sell their tariff at 4 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity. The same with South Africa that has 50,000 megawatts, sell their own products at also 4 cents per kilowatt hour. When you come to Nigeria, we'll be selling at 21 cents per kilowatt hour. So how can you compete locally and even internationally like this?
Mr. Kwajaffa, you made mention of breaking even, and let's talk about the financial side of things now, because there's also the conversation around financial intervention. Right now, we know that banks are not supplying dollars to manufacturers because there's no official rate again, and at the I&E window, the dollar to the naira is in the upper range of the 800 naira. Textile companies are basically not even close to breaking even. There's zero profit to be had. What could happen if we're not seeing serious interventions from the government? You've mentioned incentives, you've mentioned manufacturing parks, you've mentioned having electricity stabilized and given at a certain tariff. What would happen to the industry if we don't see these sort of inventions in the near future, particularly?
That's how they've been closing. This is why in the 80s, 70s, 90s, textiles were up to 167 textile mills. Now it has closed, come down to a miserable 24. So as long as they cannot compete and they cannot break even, therefore they continue to close. And that would be too bad for this country. While others are coming up, we are always going down in manufacturing-wise. The palliatives are not supposed to be given to individuals. Like I say, give somebody 8,000. This should be plowed to industry so that industry can develop and can employ people instead of giving them pittance of 8,000. What they need is employment so that they can survive. A sustainable job that people can survive with. We're not giving them paltry sum of 8,000. That could not help them. How many years? How many months would that take them? So, but if you want to give them a livelihood, you put these things into industry, deploy it to industry, and improve the parks, enabling environment to be improved, and the ease of doing business. You see, they don't put manufacturer on the committee. Always government people always fill up the committees. They don't involve private sector to see what is our problem, overhead costs. Rather, they continue to depend, look at the airports and see what the airport can do. But these are not overhead costs. Now it's fine, improve the airports, but then tackle the main problem of overhead costs. That will make investors to come to this country. As long as there's no parks that can defray some of the costs for investors, it will be difficult for foreign investors to come in. That's why since that 80s, 70s, no new textile has come in. So it's all those that have been laboring, that have been managing that asset there, no new one has ever come in.
And I think this is a good place to wrap up the conversation, because in terms of it, you'll see towards the end of one of the slides we have, that just giving basic information about Nigeria's textile industry, you'll see how many industries there were in the 80s and the 70s. Over 167 textile mills that employed over 250,000 Nigerians. Right now, more than 140 are reportedly having been closed down. And so it seems that many administrations have paid lip service to intervening in the industry at the end of the day. So would you see that as a lack of seeing value in the industry, a lack of understanding of the industry's potential? So I'd want you to take us through what the manufacturing and textile industry brings to the table when it comes to contributions to GDP, contributions to employment, and what it can do also for Nigeria as well.
Yes, well, contributing 12% to the GDP in the 70s and the 80s, that much, and they pay taxes, and the pays are paid of 250,000 for instance. So they generate a lot of tax to government and employ human beings. So when this kind of costs continue to rise, without a textile park to be competitive with, say, Ethiopia. Ethiopia have textile park. The textile park have grown now. In the 70s, they had only 2 textiles. Now Ethiopia has 200 textile mills because of the government intervention towards having a textile park there. And they can compete, they can sell their products all over the world because it's competitive. We're not saying that our goods are non-qualitative. Our goods are highly qualitative. But it's just the price, the overhead costs that make us not to remain in business. And this is to see how closure has continued like that. No government will still idle and look at companies closing from once. Look at gloves has just closed. All our main companies are going to Ghana. And Nigeria gives gas to Ghana. Why can't it be used for our people so that it can be given at the right price? And then we flourish and employ people rather than people being stranded, people becoming unemployed and doing all sorts of dastardly jobs, going to drug abuse, all sorts of things are happening because of lack of employment. Government's responsibility is welfare of citizens. So they have to see how that people are employed and employable. Like in the past, in fact, government used to go to companies, go to universities, even before they graduate. They're already employed. They already have letters of employment. But today we have left loose everything. We don't know how many people are graduating in the universities and the same curriculum. So when they come out now, they're not employable because they have been using this old curriculum for long. And they don't have anything to use their hands on. So they don't have technical skills. All polytechnics and all that, they have gone into public administration, they're not even studying other things. Go to the university in the Department of Textile. Hardly can you find a student that has applied to the Department of Textile. Okay. Banking, there are over 300, 200 people are applying. So all these things have their long-term effects.
All right, so final question I'm going to put to you now, Mr. Kwajaffa, before we wrap up because of time. What do you think is the one biggest intervention, or the one intervention rather, that would have the biggest impact on Nigeria's textile industry? I need you to give me this in 1 minute. What's the intervention that you think from the Nigerian government, be it this administration or whichever, that would have the biggest impact on the industry?
At least it is energy. Energy, and that means electricity, diesel, and gas. But if energy is supplied and is sold at uniform level, both from the north and the south, everywhere the same price, there will not be any issue. 40% of our cost goes to energy. So that should quickly be looked into, and if they can, they use the pension fund. We need 3 trillion naira to have infrastructure on ground in Nigeria. So this pension fund has 17 trillion naira. If they take 3 trillion, even the palliative, how many trillions are there? So they're by now looking at companies, industries that will employ our people. Those kind of things should be channeled to industry for them to take care, sustainable jobs, and employ the graduates. But this is what's happening in other countries. And then they are surviving, they are exporting internationally, they have access to the market locally. Go to the local markets in Nigeria now. You don't find our textile. All those ones are counterfeited. They only steal our designs from China and fill up our markets.
All right.
Go to any market in Lagos, Onisha, Kaduna, Kano. All those are counterfeited. That's why you have all those lineup trucks coming into Nigeria. So our eyes are open now to see how trucks come into Nigeria anyhow and unchecked, and they fill up our markets with substandard. If you show that line again, you see how many trucks are lined up. Nobody stops them. They are accompanied by customs and police to come to Nigeria.
And Mr. Kwajaffa, you're going into another major area of this conversation, which of course is about smuggling, but unfortunately because of time, we can't go much further there. Hamma Kwajaffa, Director General of the Nigerian Textile Employers Association, looking at how the industry is facing rising strain or under more strain because of the rising energy costs. Thank you so much for joining me on Business Edge.